What we call a mood is simply a ripple in the ocean of our emotions. It arises from many things: what you ate, how someone spoke to you, your hormones, the weather, even a random thought. It is neither dependable nor stable, yet most people live by it. One day they're ready to change the world, and the next they can't even get out of bed. If your actions are dictated by such fleeting waves, your life becomes unpredictable, erratic, and directionless. You become like a leaf in the wind, moving but not moving forward. Vision, on the other hand, is not born out of emotion. It is born out of clarity. It arises in moments of deep reflection, when you step back from your compulsions and ask, what do I truly want from this life? That question, when asked sincerely, plants a seed of vision. This seed is not swayed by today's sunshine or tomorrow's storm. It stays. It may remain unseen for some time, but it is rooted. It may not always excite you, but it continues to call you. Vision is not a high. It is an anchor. Most people confuse inspiration with vision. Inspiration is a burst. Vision is a flame. Inspiration can come from a quote, a video, a person. But vision can only come from within. It is your inner compass. If you keep changing course, every time your mood shifts, you will never travel far. It is like planting a sapling and uprooting it every 2 days because the weather changed. Nothing will ever grow that way. The truth is, you do not need to feel good to do what is good for you. You do not need to be in the perfect state of mind to take a step toward your vision. You simply need to remember why you chose this path in the first place. If that why is real, it will pull you through every low tide, every breakdown, every distraction. Vision gives you the courage to act without the need for comfort. That is when transformation begins. Not when you feel good, but when you do good despite how you feel. When you live by your moods, you spend your days adjusting your energy, your attitude, your actions, constantly reacting to how you feel. But when you live by vision, you become unwavering. Even if the outer world shifts, your inner direction remains the same. It's not about being rigid. It's about being rooted. You learn to observe your moods without obeying them. You learn to use your energy with wisdom instead of wasting it on emotional turbulence. Your actions gain consistency. Your life gains meaning. To live without emotional discipline is to live as a puppet of your inner chaos. Most people think freedom means doing what you feel like. But if you only act when you're in the mood, you are not free. You are bound. Bound by your own moods, by chemical reactions in your body, by old patterns that have taken root in your system. You may think you're making choices, but in truth, your emotions are pulling the strings and you are just following orders. Real power begins when you can act in alignment with your purpose, even when your emotions are not in agreement. Emotions are not enemies. They are part of being human. But they were never meant to lead. They are meant to inform. A wise person uses emotion as a signal, not as a command. When you're tired, you may slow down, but you don't quit. When you're afraid, you may pause, but you don't back away. Discipline means doing what is needed regardless of whether it is easy, enjoyable, or comfortable. It means placing truth above impulse, long-term growth above short-term gratification. That is true maturity. Not aging of the body, but stability of your inner space. You do not gain power over your life by eliminating emotions. That would make you a machine, not a master. You gain power by not being ruled by them. If you observe great athletes, artists, or spiritual seekers, one thing becomes clear. They do not act based on how they feel in the moment. They act based on commitment. Even when the body resists, even when the mind doubts, they show up every day, again and again. That is not talent. That is emotional discipline. And that is far more rare and more valuable than raw ability. Most people wait for their emotions to support their actions. But the wise create actions that shape their emotions. Discipline becomes the vehicle through which energy is directed with precision. Without discipline, your energy leaks through endless distractions, reactions, and mood swings. With it, you become a focused force. When your actions no longer depend on your changing moods, you become steady, grounded, and unshakable. That kind of steadiness gives you a magnetic presence. Others can feel it, even if they cannot explain it. To cultivate emotional discipline is to train your system to serve your higher intention. It is to rewire your inner response from chaos to clarity. This is not about suppression. It is about leadership. You lead your mind instead of following its every fluctuation. You lead your energy instead of allowing it to be wasted. Slowly, your inner world becomes organized. Your moods still come and go, but they no longer take you off course. You become the master of your time, your focus, your destiny. Motivation is like a guest. It shows up unexpectedly, brings energy and enthusiasm, but it never stays long. One day, you feel inspired after hearing a powerful talk or reading a quote, and suddenly everything seems possible. You feel like you can take on the world. But by the next morning, the fire is gone. This is the nature of motivation. It is emotional, fleeting, and often dependent on external triggers. If your life depends on motivation, you will find yourself stuck in cycles of starting and stopping, rising and falling. Commitment, on the other hand, is a different kind of force. It is not loud or dramatic. It doesn't need a reason to exist. It is a choice that stands on its own. While motivation depends on how you feel, commitment is about what you decide. When you are committed, you show up even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when nobody is watching. That kind of consistency doesn't require inspiration. It requires clarity. Clarity about who you want to be, what you want to create, and what price you're willing to pay for it. Most people think they need to feel good in order to do good. But the truth is, greatness is born not in emotional highs, but in the quiet, steady rhythm of commitment. You wake up, you do the work, you keep your word. Not because you are motivated, but because you made a promise to yourself. This is the foundation of self-respect. If you only act when you feel excited, you will not build anything lasting. Excitement fades. Commitment endures. That is why those who succeed are not always the most talented. They are often the most consistent. Think of a relationship. If it survives only in the days of happiness and celebration, it will collapse in the face of conflict. What sustains a relationship is not the rush of emotion. It is the quiet strength of commitment. The same principle applies to your goals, your work, your spiritual path. There will be days when everything inside you wants to quit. On those days, If you depend on motivation, you will fall. But if you are rooted in commitment, you will rise. You will do what is needed, not because it feels good, but because it matters. Motivation is like weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy. You cannot build your house depending on the sun always shining. You build it with strong walls, a solid roof, and deep foundations. That is commitment. It is your internal architecture. It holds you upright when everything else wobbles. You don't need to be carried by emotion. You need to be carried by your own word. Commitment is the quiet, invisible power that outlasts every excuse, every doubt, and every temporary feeling. You can sit for hours feeling inspired, imagining a better life, dreaming of transformation. But none of that builds anything until action is taken. Emotion is not a substitute for motion. Many people mistake feeling something deeply for doing something meaningful. You may cry, feel awakened, feel strong. Yet, if your feet don't move, your hands don't work, your habits don't change, then nothing in your life shifts. Emotion without action is like thunder without rain. It makes noise, but brings no growth. Action is the only thing that shapes reality. Everything you see around you was not created by emotion, but by action. A book wasn't written through inspiration alone. It was written word by word, day after day. A temple wasn't built through devotion alone. It was built stone by stone, hand by hand. Emotion can start the journey, but only disciplined, sustained action completes it. This is why so many dreams die while still alive. People fall in love with the feeling of possibility, but never marry the process that makes it real. When you act only when you feel emotional, you become unreliable to yourself. Today you're driven. Tomorrow you're tired. The next day you're confused. And slowly you start doubting yourself. Not because you're incapable, but because you haven't trained yourself to act beyond emotion. Action builds confidence, not thought, not talk, not hope. Only when you consistently do what you said you would do, your mind begins to trust you. That inner trust is what builds momentum. That momentum becomes your strength. Emotion is meant to move you inward, but it is action that moves your life forward. If you wish to build anything, whether it's a relationship, a career, a practice, or your inner self, you must prioritize doing over feeling. Not every day will be inspired. Not every step will feel exciting. But every step done with awareness adds to the structure of your life. You don't have to feel extraordinary to do extraordinary things. You just have to act when it's time to act, regardless of what your emotions whisper. Waiting for the perfect emotional state is a clever form of delay. You tell yourself, once I feel ready, I'll begin. But readiness never comes wrapped in comfort. You become ready by showing up, not by thinking about showing up. This is the path of the builder. The one who moves one step at a time, who trusts the bricks more than the breeze, who shapes their life with their own hands, rather than waiting for the winds of emotion to carry them. Such a person may be slow, but they are steady, and what they build stands the test of time. You were not born to be a slave to your own chemistry. Moods come and go like tides, but your choices must not be dictated by these tides. A mood is nothing more than a passing vibration in your system, a fluctuation of hormones, a shift in mental atmosphere. But for many, This fleeting wave becomes the ruler of their life. When they're in a good mood, they act. When they're in a bad mood, they retreat. This is not intelligence. This is bondage. If your life decisions bend every time your mood swings, you will go in circles without ever reaching where you intended. To recognize that your mood is not your master is the beginning of inner freedom. It means you are no longer governed by temporary emotional weather. It means you've stepped into the position of authority in your own life. You see, your moods were never supposed to lead. They were only meant to pass. But if you make them the basis of your actions, they will hijack your path, distract your focus, and steal your energy. You don't let a guest run your house. Why let a mood run your life? The power lies in watching your mood without being caught in it. Observe it like a cloud passing through the sky. You acknowledge it, but you don't chase it. When sadness comes, you don't become the sadness. When frustration arises, you don't become the frustration. You remain aware. You act from awareness, not from agitation. This is not suppression. It is clarity. The one who can act without being consumed by emotion is no less human. They are simply awake. People often say, "I didn't feel like it," as if that's a valid reason to abandon a commitment. But feelings were never meant to be the compass. You set your direction through conscious intent. You follow that path through consistent action. If you keep waiting for your mood to align with your goals, you will wait forever. Real power comes when you do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel in the moment. That is when you stop being a prisoner of emotion and become a master of energy. Each time you act against the pull of a negative mood, you build strength. Inner strength is not developed by chanting mantras or collecting positive quotes. It is developed in those exact moments when your system says no and you say yes. When you feel low but still get up. When you feel discouraged but still do the work. That is when you rise, not in mood, but in mastery. You begin to see that your moods are just movements of air in a vast space. You are that space, not the movement.